This is Val. It's a frozen wasteland that was once used by the Burning Legion as a prison world, and we cleared through it during patch 7.3 Shadows of Argus. And this is that same world, Val, but as seen in Midnight's patch 12.0.7. It's the same map, same location, it's a little bit bigger, but this time we find something different. It's infested with void beings. But you clicked a video about Sargeras, and don't worry, it absolutely is. This is not about Xal'atath and the Void, and that's because in a hidden cave, something minor, seemingly, but in actuality very important was found. It's this, a former commander of the Legion. His name is Warbringer Thal'kuul, and his title, the Mutinied, gives us a window into the post-Legion demon world. We learn that Thal'kuul was overthrown by his own soldiers and left to die on this frozen world. Where did these soldiers go? Well, we don't know, and it's not exactly important, because what is important is they did a mutiny. They demonstrated free will. Think about that, and then realize how demon lore has been landing thick and fast throughout Midnight. We find the likes of crashed ships, demons leading mutinies, demons living peacefully alongside Draenei on the world of Nashabor, whilst we find others that are out there rallying 100,000 worlds to restart the Burning Crusade. Yes, that's quite literally happening in the lore right now. And we shouldn't be surprised demons are being used as a storytelling tool this deep into World Soul Saga. That's because we're barreling towards its final expansion, The Last Titan, where all signs point to a return of Sargeras. But of course, like the demons he once led, Sargeras will be different to how he was when we last saw him, and considering everything we've discovered about the Titan conspiracy at the core of this saga, and of much of Warcraft, even going back to, say, the events of Wrath of the Lich King, well, Sargeras may have been more right than we thought at the time. And if big things are cooking with Sargeras, then having these fractured free demons scattered around the cosmos is almost perfect. We've got a fresh stack then of demon lore today, and a whole bunch about Sargeras that's all pointing straight towards the Last Titan. So, with all that said, let's get stuck in. We gotta do two things. First, we gotta set up the fresh demon lore that's dropped in Midnight, and then we've gotta show how that points to a return of Sargeras in a way that we probably didn't expect. And to do that, let's begin the day the Burning Legion died. Sargeras was taken by the Titans and zapped off into space, leaving this odd red star just hanging around in the sky, a star that promises that yes, one day Sargeras will return. We were even baited by Alex Afersabi, who told us to keep an eye on that red star, and that if it ever vanished, there would be a problem. Though so far, after thousands of collective hours spent watching, nothing has obviously happened to the star. Now since then, between Legion and Midnight, we interacted with demons 4 times. There were 2 Dreadlords with ancient beef sacrificing souls in Felwood, there's the Darkmoon Fair, there's Satyrs and Bloodmist, and of course the Manary Eridar reuniting with the Draenei. Now, this of course was the era of What Sword, where it felt like we had 3 expansions just ignoring the consequences of Sargeras' stabbing of the sword into the world and of course his capture. But all that changed with Midnight. There were 4 Legion stories in the near decade between Antorus and the War Within, and right now there have been 4 demon stories in Midnight alone, and each one tells quite the story and points into the future. Now let's begin with the one that we all expect, and that is that some demons are out there and they just want to watch the world burn. The true threat of a Legion return was actually set up in Midnight's prequel novel called Blood Ties. It followed Arator, Illyrian Turallion on a cosmos-hopping demon hunt. Now, it began in Fell Soul Hold near Suramar, where rogue demons were sacrificing Nightborn to power something known as the Soul Engine. And as the plot unraveled, the true architect of all of these sacrificing schemes was revealed. And it turned out it was an Eridar named Sarathar. As we discover, these weren't rogue demons at all. They were actually part of a major power struggle within the remnants of the Burning Legion. Everything, every world, warband, battleship was up for grabs. You just had to be brutal enough to take it. Which wound up with Arator acting as an unwitting pawn in the game between a few different demons. And that's because Sarathar had actually put Arator on the trail of his rival, a Shivara named Varskar the Flayer. And under interrogation, she claimed that the Legion was not in fact dead. Far from it. That in reality, it had rallied on 100,000 worlds. And what's worse, Xal'atath had came within striking distance of his own ambition, which was to use the Soul Engine to power a portal connection between Azeroth and all those Legion worlds. So then, 100,000 worlds. It's a fairly immense threat. It shows a Maynard demonic faction is out there and is still loyal to its original mission. But let me show you the reality of all that. You see, many of those worlds are backwaters. They're insignificant outposts. They're the ruins of past conquests. They're not big hitters like, say, the reclaimed Argus or the now destroyed world of Nathreza. They are the likes of Val, frozen outposts with a single holdout like Thal'kuul. But it's in these locations where we see the true pivot in Blizzard's storytelling with the Burning Legion. And the big discovery is the demon lore is absolutely back in the menu, and in a way, it's got a whole new flavor, and one that actually makes sense for demons. And that flavor is freedom. We've just revisited Val, but now we're going to see Nagtal. This is a fungal world that was once victim to a Legion invasion that wiped out its sentient races. We return to this world in 1207. The map's a bit different, but it's the same location, and when there, we find the majestic ruins of a crashed Legion ship. And much like seeing a crashed Imperial Star Destroyer in Star Wars, I think the message Blizzard has here is rather obvious. The once mighty fleets of the Burning Legion are gone, their greatest weapons are destroyed, they're crashed in swamps and wastelands scattered across the verse. On Val, we saw what happened to the captain of ships like these, abandoned and left for dead. Now, this is the second example from a location incredibly far from Val that is showing us how across the universe demons are throwing off their shackles. They're forging new power dynamics. Some were true demons from the twisting nether who will just seek chaos at every turn. But many of those we call demons were actually just other intelligent races. Just ones that were corrupted by Fel. Most notably, Sargeras did it with the Eridar, working through Kil'jaeden, of course, and just like the Orcs and the Eridar, these demons can actually be saved because they are not true pure demons. And the clearest example of that happens on a planet that we've only just heard rumors about. There are whispers of demons and Draenei living somewhat in harmony, which is something that we actually learned from a group of Draenei we found who called themselves the Nethersent. Okay, peaceful demons, neutral demons, what the hell's going on with that? Well, it's some crazy lore, but it's actually pretty cool. So, we meet this group called the Nethersent. They were a group of Draenei who left with Velen during the initial exodus from Argus. And after that exodus, it took hundreds upon hundreds of years of traveling around the cosmos to actually find Draenor. And in that time, they did make pit stops on many worlds. One of those was called Nashabur. But the problem is, throughout this entire situation, much like, say, the humans and Cylons of Battlestar Galactica, the Legion were hot on their heels. They found them, they would invade whatever world they were taking a pit stop on, and the story I'm about to tell is one of those times. Now, there are two interpretations of how it went down. One story paints the Draenei as cowards who just left the Nethersent behind, so basically, Prophet Velen and co. just made a hasty getaway and left some of their people behind. But characters like Lothraxion call the Nethersent heretics, claiming that they actually wanted to stop running and that they just wanted to stay on Nashabur and wanted to stay so much that they fought their Draenei kin and even injured a Naru, which is, of course, not really traditional Draenei behavior. So, apparently the Draenei then left them to die on that world. Pretty much, you've made your bed, sleep on it, we're leaving. But the thing is, they didn't die. They survived, and they survived for a crazy reason. We are told by the Nethersent that they live alongside demons peacefully on their world, that they play traditional Draenei sports together and have a well-integrated society. Now, it's easy to imagine these demons maybe told their Legion masters that the invasion was a success, and that because of that, the Legion can just ignore the planet. That they then maybe turned off whatever the demon equivalent of a transponder is and just disappeared into a peaceful life. That's not impossible to see. Now, once upon a time, it would have sounded absolutely mad. Demons and Draenei living peacefully on some distant world would be completely insane to the lore. But it seems here that it is true, and I think it shows us a direction Blizzard wants to take the demons, the Fel, Disorder, and all those decades of built-up lore. And most importantly, well, how they're going to handle the return of Sargeras. So, we've went through 4 demon stories here. There's Bloodtie showing us big Legion personalities that are out there, carving up what's left of the power base. There's Val and Negtel, which show us demons throwing off their chains and setting out to carve their own destiny. And then, on Nashabor, we find demons who have done just that. So what the hell does all of this mean? Where is it going? Well, demons have always had free will in the Warcraft verse. This whole thing is just a natural consequence of Sargeras being gone, right? Well, yes, kind of. But remember, I said it was an important storytelling tool, and that it's setting up an expansion to the lore that is more mind-bending than I think any amount of Draenei and Demon living peacefully together could be. And that's because it's all about the return of the original big bad man of Warcraft, Sargeras. Sargeras is key to the concept of free will with demons. You see, we've always kind of understood that demons have free will. They hate servitude by warlocks, but, they go through it anyway. And we even know that long before Sargeras enslaved them all, that the Doomguard were actually the Titans' magical police. They were forced to scour the universe for any abuse of the arcane and then, destroy the abuser. That was another job that they resented. Now, in the Burning Crusade, many demons actually chose to join Illidan. That's because Illidan offered them an alternative to their Fel addiction. Kick the addiction and you'll be free. And we even found Xal'atath in Zangarmarsh. He's a funny little character. You see, he noped out of being a Legion baddie so that he could just be worshipped as a god by the Sporelings. So, it's not like Midnight's demon stories have just walked in here and completely revolutionized what we thought demons were capable of. They've always been cutting deals and that sort of thing. But we do need to ask, why are Blizzard doing it now? Why are demons being presented in all of these complicated ways now, when, for the most part, they hadn't been for quite some time indeed? Put simply, Sargeras will return in The Last Titan. We know that the Titans are coming back, and we know that the Titans have Sargeras. We also know we're going to deal with Sargeras' sword in Xal'atath. But there's actually something else going on in here. It's a narrative that folds these demon stories into the A-plot of the War Within, Midnight, and what'll come next. And that is, of course, the Titan Conspiracy. Now, we recently went deep in this theory on a lore video. I'll link it at the end of this one in case you missed it. But before you watch that, I'm going to state Sargeras' role in this grand conspiracy rather plainly. In short, Sylvanas has actually told us now twice that the Shadowlands isn't what we thought it was, that it's too ordered. And we've established that that means almost certainly that it was built by the Titans. And in that video, we go through the deepest lore of the past 2 expansions, and we piece together what all of this stuff means from Sylvanas. It basically comes down to the Titan Conspiracy dominating the World Soul, going really far back, even so far back that it's to a fundamental flaw that the Titans baked into reality. Basically, they made a big mistake. And that mistake was them subverting the natural function of what the Shadowlands was supposed to be, and how in doing so, they left the door open to the Void's eventual consumption of all reality. That is what the jailer called the fundamental flaw in reality. That's what he meant when he said that a cosmos divided cannot stand against, the famous phrase, what is to come. He called Azeroth a world soul teeming with enough potential to fix this big problem the Titans introduced. And basically, he's a character who saw the flaw before most did, and that's something that we've, I think, now backed up with a rather fierce level of certainty. It's very, very well grounded in the lore. And with that in mind, we need to think about Sargeras. Remember, Sargeras was once Team Titan Pantheon, right? He was basically their champion. His job was to go around fighting all the baddies that could possibly get in the way of the Titans' designs. And he served in that role for an unknown but almost certainly mind-bogglingly huge period of time. So he played his role in building and enforcing this Titan conspiracy. He conquered worlds, he expanded order across the cosmos, he likely laid the foundations of their control in the Shadowlands. I mean, think about it, he was their champion. If anything in the afterlife said no to the Titans, Sargeras would be the guy to roll up and with his big sword deal with the problem. So, whatever the problem is, he's probably aware of it. But here's the thing. Just like with the jailer, he realized something was really quite wrong. And this is where I can go back to Warcraft Chronicle. Okay, so here's the quote. Sargeras expressed his growing fear that existence itself was already flawed. That's a key quote, and he even goes on to tell the Titan Pantheon about this flaw. And here's the big thing. The Titan Pantheon actually agreed with Sargeras. They agreed there was a huge problem, and they thought that Azeroth would be the solution to that problem. So then, this flaw has basically been known to us in at least some form since the Burning Crusade. The idea is that the universe is so broken that the Void will eventually win. It would, in time, do exactly what Xal'atath is now trying to do as we speak. And that is basically what tipped Sargeras over the edge into insanity. It's basically the knowledge that ended up spawning the Burning Legion. He just realized the whole situation was so foobar that the best thing he could do was just wipe the entire slate clean. Now here's where it gets really big. Who told Sargeras about this flaw? Or, to put it in more modern terms, who blackpilled Sargeras? Well, it's actually fairly simple. The lore says it's the Nathrezim. And you know what? That still totally fits. Because the Nathrezim were working downstream from the Jailer, so, at the end of the day, they were all looking at the same broken picture and figuring out ways to fix it. Now you may hear all of this and think, oh god, this is insane. Are they just making, like, Zovaal the most important dude in the Warcraft verse? No, there is a link, but absolutely not. Because there's another character who saw this flaw as well, and it's one you've met recently. It's Morozond, the Twilight version of Nosdormu, the leader of the Bronze Dragonflight. He says, I believe the quote is, Aman'Thul, what I have seen. And the implication is, whatever he saw that drove him mad is, really extremely bad. And from everything that we've been able to piece together, it is basically that flaw. He saw the result of that flaw, and it's what drove him mad. Now, of course, the solutions of many of these characters, be it Sargeras, Morozond, or the Jailer, well, they were absolutely pants-on-head bonkers, but you do get the picture. So, when Sargeras returns to face down that flaw in the Last Titan, he'll know full well it was actually the Titans who messed everything up, that their endless want for order created a flaw so fundamental that Sargeras saw no solution but to burn the entire thing down, and to let the universe reset without the threat of Void Lords looming over everything, to basically bring back how it was before the Titans launched their doomed attempt at perfection. So we will meet a Sargeras with complicated motivations that needs a complicated legion to call on. So will he turn to Variskar's 100,000 worlds? Or maybe will he once again set near infinite demons against us? Or will the now free demons decide, actually, that they want to fight him? As of now, we can't be sure, but it certainly is a complicated army for a man who is about to have his most fundamental motivations vindicated. And that is that the Titans' reality truly does need to be torn down. And if that all sounds absolutely crazy, do not worry, because all you need to do is watch this video next, because it's the one where we lay down the entire conspiracy from start to finish. I think you'll love it, and with it in your mind, you'll almost certainly enjoy The Last Titan way more than you would otherwise.